This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Lenovo Legion 5i Pro Gen 7 for 2022. So it's a minor update of the Legion 5i line. Okay, what does 5i mean? It means Intel. But don't stop watching and say, oh man, I'm all about Ryzen. We're still waiting for the new Ryzen 6000 series CPUs to come out. In the meantime, Intel has done a pretty good job with 12th gen Alder Lake H-series processors when it comes to gaming laptops. There's some other improvements too. We're going to take a look at it now. All right, so you probably, if you're into gaming laptops at all, know the Legion, which has been a really successful line of gaming laptops for Lenovo. So there's several different lines. There's the Legion 5s, the Legion 7s, the Legion Slims, and all that sort of thing. Not that this one is chunky or something like that, but you know, you get the idea. They're popular because the price was fair for what you got. You can get it with Ryzen or with Intel. This one is just the Intel model again. And also we had 16:10 aspect ratio QHD plus displays, so 2560 by 1600 resolution, a pretty nice tactile keyboard, which Lenovo has some marketing name for, True Strike or something like that, but it's actually quite nice to type on. And again, just a lot of value and in chill look. So you look at this laptop and it doesn't have RGB going on everywhere on the chassis, though Lenovo does offer some with external RGB lights if you do want that sort of thing. It's their storm gray color. It should be available in glacier white also, according to Lenovo. It's just a nice looking laptop. You can use at work, you can use at school, and you can game with without looking like Boy Racer. All right, so there we go. We still get that lovely 16:10 aspect ratio IPS display. It's variable refresh rate this year. It's 165 hertz. Nominally, you can overdrive it. It might even hit 240 hertz. Fast response times, 1 to 2 milliseconds on there. It's IPS, it's matte, and color gamut on it is pretty good. It's not amazing class leading. I'm going to use this to be a professional video editor level of color, but it's good and it's fairly well calibrated, and it comes with X-Rite software, so you can play with the color calibrations yourself, use the factory one, or switch the color space, all that sort of stuff. Nice. We have an Intel 12th Gen Core i7-12700H processor inside. That's 14 cores, 8 efficiency cores, 6 performance cores. So the idea is, in theory, when you're doing moderate to light work, it doesn't have to work as hard, generate as much heat, or tank your battery life too terribly. However, when it's gaming, as we've seen from this generation of CPU, it will use plenty of watts and generate a fair amount of heat, so it can still, well, it's got game, let's put it that way. It uses DDR5 4800 megahertz RAM, comes with 16. You can upgrade that if you want, and it has 2 M.2 SSD slots. We have a very fast PCIe 4 drive in ours, which is sweet. Even if you don't spend your day copying files all the time, it's still nice to have. So how much does this cost? I've been talking about how the pricing is fair. Here's the thing, don't quite know yet. Lenovo didn't provide that information to us, and it's not readily available on the market yet, but it's looking like it's going to be around $2,000 if you go for the higher end RTX 3070 Ti model. Other amenities include Wi-Fi 6E, and you have your choice between an all-white keyboard, an all-blue keyboard, or what we have, which is a 4-zone RGB backlit keyboard. Not per key, but again, the Legion 5 is one of their more affordable lines, so it doesn't go for the maximal bling and all that sort of thing. It's fair enough, right? And we have the RTX 3060 model. You can get it with a 3050 Ti or go up to a 3070 Ti, which is 150 watts. Our 3060 is 140 watts. So that's pretty good wattage. They're upping the wattage there. And honestly, it did better in games than I expected. I played a QHD resolution, and I think that's a perfect resolution if you got a 3070 or 3080. But even the 3060 here with the 12th Gen i7 did really well. Playing games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, you could hit 60 frames per second at QHD plus resolution, and they're very high settings, not a problem at all. And even playing something like Far Cry 6, which granted does typically do pretty well on Intel, the frame rates on that, as you can see from the footage that's running, very good as well. Now, if you're playing Cyberpunk, don't expect to play ultra ray tracing and all that sort of thing in QHD resolution, because that's still a bit of work for a high wattage 3080, but you can certainly play at full HD resolution with more of the bells and whistles turned on, or drop off the ray tracing and play high at QHD and have playable frame rates. And for something like Apex Legends, you know, you're playing either your MMOs or your Battle Royale games, you can certainly get high frame rates if you want. I tested it on high, but for those of you who want even higher frame rates, you can drop the quality down, and I tested it at QHD plus resolution. So there's that. It got game. Cooling on this is pretty good. It's the latest Legion Cold Front 4.0, which they've enlarged the rear fans a bit and made the fan blades even thinner, which typically helps with air volume and reduces noise. And they've revised the heat pipe design. And honestly, in games, it did well. Now, it wasn't pushing the processor as hard as it could go. I left it on the default mode, their balanced performance mode there. But the frame rates were really great, so I'm not going to complain if it's going to keep the CPU cores at 66 centigrade. I mean, most people are going to be like, that's super chill. So you can push the settings up if you want, you know. So for that GPU, the good news is that we have switchable graphics here, and we have a software-based MUX switch, which means you can put it in dedicated graphics only mode if you want. It's not Advanced Optimus, you do have to reboot to make those changes. One weird thing that I noticed was if I put it in DGPU mode only, MSI Afterburner, which is what we use and many folks use to show the statistics in the upper left corner of the game where you see the frame rates and the temperatures and the clock speeds and stuff, it couldn't actually poll the GPU anymore. I don't know why that is. So for some of it, we dropped down to hybrid mode for the test, which really didn't show that much of a performance hit. Anyway, it's there for you. They'll probably work that out eventually. I don't know what weird stuff is going on there. I did notice in some games a little bit of graphical, it's hard to describe the kind of glitch it was. I think that the variable refresh rate might be pretty new technology and some games are just not handling it super well. Games are still playable, but I did notice that. One thing I didn't like much about the trackpad was the fact that it's really large, but the palm rejection wasn't that great. So I was accidentally, well, moving the cursor while typing, you know. It's not the end of the world, but I'd like to see that improved. Ports on this are pretty generous. Of course, since it's Intel, one of the benefits is you do get Thunderbolt 4. We have one of those. We got 2 USB-C 3.2 Gen 2 ports. You got 3 USB-A ports. You have HDMI 2.1. You have gigabit Ethernet on board, and of course a headphone jack as well, but no SD card slot. Oh well, that. And you've got DisplayPort out support through the USB-C, so if you need DisplayPort, just use an adapter if you don't have a USB-C based monitor. Sound on this? Pretty decent, actually. And we got two 2-watt stereo speakers, which is par for the course. It comes with Nahimic 3 audio software, which is quite good. MSI has been using it, other makers too. And it can really actually add some bass and a sense of separation to make the speaker sounds much better than they would otherwise. So if you get one of these, do try it out, but see how you like it, because I think it makes a noticeable difference. For battery life, we have an 80 watt-hour battery, same as last generation, and Lenovo's usual 300 watt OP charger. It's OP because for what we have, a 3060, a 230 watt charger would have been just fine. But they give you more than you need, so you're never going to see the charge level dropping when you're playing a game or doing something demanding. And by the way, demanding also includes, this would be fine for video editing, Blender, anything that you want to do. It's not just for gaming. Anyway, battery life, they claim about 5 or 5.5 hours or so, and that's with brightness set at 200 nits, and that's light to moderate use in streaming video, and that's about accurate. That's about the most I found that you could get out of this, and that's in hybrid graphics mode, so it can switch the Intel Xe integrated graphics, not use the DGPU all the time. To take the bottom cover off is an exercise in passive-aggressive design. It's like a gaming laptop, yay, 10 Phillips head screws, you unscrew it, it comes off, aluminum bottom. Well, not quite. It's easy enough to get the front edge off, and by the way, shorter screws in the front edge, remember that when you put it back together. But the back here is actually a wraparound, it has plastic attached to it. Or maybe if I turn it this way. See all this? So you have to actually pull off the wraparound rear and rear side sections before you can get this puppy off. Once you get it off, here's a nice massive heatsink design over here, which is nice. 2 big rear fans, side and rear exhaust ports. And over here we have a cover, and over here we have another cover, almost symmetrical, Lenovo-like symmetry. Each one of these is retained by 3 screws. One of them also happens to retain the fan in the back. Anyway, you can undo those to see what's underneath. And here we have one of the M.2 SSD slots, and this is the socketed Wi-Fi 6E card. And over here we have another just SSD slot. Not so different from the past generation there. So there's where your storage is, and obviously we've got 2 of these set up together, and again, PCIe 4 fast performance from these drives. And the RAM is under this cover right here, under the shield. So that's one of those you pop it off with your fingernail if you happen to have some fingernails. and 2 RAM slots. So oddly, Lenovo listed as 32 gigs max, but obviously 64 gig would be the max if you could get 2 32 gig DIMMs. Again, DDR5 4800 megahertz might not be the most easy thing to find on the market just yet, but it gives you options. So that's a Lenovo Legion 5i Pro for 2022, the Gen 7 model. As ever, things to like. You got an aluminum chassis, chill looks. You got a lot of ports out the back, so things stay tidy, and they have labels. I love the fact that they put labels there, so you don't have to crane your head all the way to the back to see where they are. Performance on this is good. In fact, better than I expected with the 3060. The cooling on this is pretty good. Granted, if you're running it in balance mode, they're really not pushing it very hard, but the frame rates are high, and the cooling overall is pretty effective, and it's not particularly noisy as gaming laptops go. Sure, it ain't silent, but it's not going to whine or deafen you or drown out game audio necessarily. Good there. Intel nets you Thunderbolt 4, pretty good gaming performance, okay, you know, I mean, they typically make a little bit more heat than Ryzen and don't have quite the battery life, but still, there are some benefits there, the performance and the Thunderbolt 4 being the particular ones with Intel right now. I'm Lisa from MobileTechReview. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.